Hello, this is my sweet mess, and welcome to my kitchen, where every week I make a mess trying new recipes in the pursuit of something sweet. This week, I am excited to try a new to me recipe for Raspberry Lemonade Cupcakes from Jacqueline at Cooking Classy. I'll leave the original recipe link in the show notes below. This recipe combines two of my favorite flavors, citrus and berries. I love almost all types of fruit, but especially berries, and as I was looking at the recipe steps, you can immediately see that citrus is going to be a prominent flavor in the cupcake, and the icing is all about the raspberry. I cannot wait to try this cupcake at the end, so let's hurry up and get started with this bake. Let's get started with our mise en place. Mise en place is a French term which translates to putting in place or everything in its place. It is the process of preparing your ingredients and tools before you get started with your bake. Essentially, what I'm doing is taking a look at my recipe steps and ingredient list and measuring everything out and putting the ingredients in their own bowls as opposed to measuring and dumping as I go. There are a few more dishes at the end, but this helps me to stay organized. And staying organized is definitely going to be a challenge with this recipe, as it calls for making a cupcake, a simple syrup, and a raspberry buttercream, which calls for making a raspberry puree, which I have never done before. And of course, buttercream can be a bit temperamental, so making sure that I nail the mise en place will help set me up for success throughout the bake. As we know with baking, there is typically little room for recipe modifications or substitutions. This recipe is different. Now, like I just said, the recipe calls for raspberry puree, but if you don't like raspberries or they aren't in season, you could easily substitute for strawberries or maybe even blackberries if you wanted to. You could also use real fruit extract or dehydrated fruit if that's what's available. Another great option with this recipe is substituting the entire cupcake recipe. While I'm following the from scratch recipe, you could easily use a lemon cake mix for the cupcake part to save on time. If you use a cake mix, you might want to add a little lemon juice to help punch up the lemon flavor a bit, otherwise you should be good to go. If you're following the from scratch recipe, you'll notice that both all-purpose flour and cake flour are called for. Now, for better or worse, I can sometimes be a spirit of the recipe follower rather than the actual recipe, which got me to wondering, is there really a difference between cake flour and all-purpose flour that would make me go out and buy a completely different thing? And the answer is yes. According to a quick search, it looks like cake flour has a significantly lower protein content. Oh no. Which makes the actual flour softer. Cake flour also produces a bake with a softer, lighter texture compared to all-purpose, which is better suited for, say, cookies where more structure is needed. By using both, you get some structure and some lightness. So, long story short, yes, both flours are needed. Because there are quite a few elements and honestly a lot of ingredients, including the different types of flour, lots of uses of lemon juice and lemon zest, and my dreaded powdered sugar, I'm going to keep the individual recipes on different counters to help keep everything straight. Now that everything looks measured out and sorted, let's prep our equipment. Starting out, I need to preheat my oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. I've also pulled out several mixing bowls, either an electric hand mixer or a stand mixer, and a food processor. I also have here my cupcake pan and cupcake liners. Now I'm using my silicone liners today because I ran out of paper liners, but just use whatever you have. And for a little added insurance, I will also just go ahead and spray them with a non-stick cooking spray just to make sure everything comes out clean. My ingredients are measured and ready. My equipment is prepped and within reach. I think we are finally ready to get started with this bake. So something happened with this footage. I don't know if it was deleted on accident. The footage does not exist, so I'm just going to talk you through it. You didn't miss much. all I did was sift together in a medium mixing bowl the all-purpose flour, the cake flour, baking powder, baking soda, and salt. Once everything was sifted, I just set that aside for later. So this is the end result. It's all been sifted, and now I will set it aside for later. Now I will take the buttermilk and lemon juice, combine them and whisk them together, and set that aside for later. In the food processor, I will combine the sugar and lemon zest and pulse those together until the zest is finely ground, which should take about a minute. Once the lemon zest and sugar are well combined and the zest is finely ground, I will, you guessed it, set that aside for later. In a large mixing bowl, using either an electric stand mixer fitted with the paddle attachment or a hand mixer, I will whip together the butter with that lemon sugar mixture from the food processor until the butter is pale and fluffy. Don't forget to turn your mixer off every once in a while and scrape the sides of the bowl. Once your butter and lemon zest look well combined, I'll take our egg and then egg whites and slowly add them one at a time to the butter and lemon zest mixture. I will start with the whole egg and then add in the egg whites, making sure that with each addition they are incorporated completely before I move on to the next step. With the last egg white, I'll also go ahead and add the vanilla. It's all coming together now. I've got the flour mixture from earlier and the butter lemon juice mixture from earlier and our eggs and butter and zest mixture that we just worked on. Working in batches, we will slowly add in the flour and buttermilk. The way it's going to go to make sure everything is well incorporated is I'll add flour, then buttermilk, flour, buttermilk, and then flour. So starting and ending with the flour. A key step here is making sure that everything is well combined before I move on to the next step, which means stopping and scraping the sides of the bowl, giving it a turn with the spatula, and using my electric hand mixer. I find that as I'm moving from flour to buttermilk, giving it a few turns with the spatula not only helps make sure that everything is well combined, it also helps to prevent messes. Once everything looks well combined, I'll give it a few more turns, and then I think we're ready to dish up our cupcakes. Now that everything looks good, I will place this in a preheated oven for 18 to 20 minutes or until a toothpick comes out clean. While my cupcakes are cooling, I'm going to make the raspberry puree. I've got my food processor and I'm going to add in my fresh raspberries. Once the raspberries are pureed, I'll take a fine mesh strainer set over a bowl and spoon the puree over the strainer to remove the seeds. You should have about 6 to 7 tablespoons of raspberries in your bowl and lots of seeds in the strainer when you're done. Then I'll put my raspberries into a saucepan set over medium-low heat and keep stirring until the puree is reduced to about half. And when it looks like about half the mixture is left, I'll go ahead and pull it from the heat and let it cool completely. Now back to the cupcakes. Now that my timer is up, the toothpick comes out clean. I'm just going to let these cool in the pan for about 5 minutes and then transfer them to a wire rack to cool the rest of the way. While my cupcakes are cooling, I will make the simple syrup. So I have my lemon juice and sugar here, and I will just stir these together until the sugar is completely dissolved. Once my 5 minutes are up, I'll pull the cupcakes out of the tin and let them cool on the rack. After a few minutes of the cupcakes hanging out on the cooling rack, I will check to see that they are warm but not hot. Once I'm happy with their temperature, I'll brush the simple syrup over the warm cupcakes, making sure to use all of it. I cannot find my pastry brush, so I'm just going to use a spoon and be very light-handed with spooning the syrup on top of the cupcakes. Once all the syrup is gone, I will set these aside to cool completely while I make the frosting. I'll grab my electric hand mixer or stand mixer and start to whip the butters until they are very pale. Once the butters are mixed, I will lower the speed of my stand mixer and slowly add in a cup of powdered sugar. I'll let the mixture go for a few turns, and then I'll add in my cooled raspberry puree and vanilla. Once the puree and vanilla look well incorporated, I'll go ahead and add the rest of the powdered sugar. I'm also going to turn the mixer off a few times to give it a turn with a spatula, just to make sure that this powdered sugar doesn't go flying when I turn on the mixture and it doesn't hide at the bottom of the bowl. Once all of your powdered sugar is incorporated, let the mixture go until you get a light and fluffy texture. I'm going to take the bowl off the mixture and give it a few turns with a spatula to make sure everything is well combined and nothing is left at the bottom. And marvel at this color. I love this pink. It is so fun and festive. Once the frosting looks good, I'll get a piping bag fit with the attachment of your choosing. I like this star pattern, and go ahead and put the tip in the piping bag and get ready to fill my bag. I saw Claire Saffitz do this and I thought it was a great tip. So you get a cup and you flip your piping tip up and put the tip and piping bag into the cup. Then you take the top of the piping bag and flip it over the sides of the cup, and then you can go ahead and start filling your bag, but be careful not to overfill. Now that the bag is filled, I'm actually just going to set this to the side. I'm not quite ready for it yet, but I know that it's not going to leak out into the cup because, again, I have the tip flipped up. Let me grab my little serving tray where I'm going to put the cupcakes, my cupcakes, and the raspberries. I'm going to take the silicone liners off the cupcakes. If you want to leave them on, that's fine. If you have paper liners, honestly, if I had paper liners, I'd just leave them, but I don't, and I don't want to lose track of my reusable liners, so I'm just going to take them off. To start, I'm going to put one raspberry on each cupcake as a little hidden surprise. If you ran out of raspberries, you don't have to do this part, that is totally fine. Then I will pipe frosting over and around the raspberry. I chose to start from the outside and work in like soft serve ice cream, but do whatever works for you and your comfort level. I gotta admit, while I'm not the most confident at piping, especially piping around something, I think I actually did okay, totally passable for a family barbecue. Once all of the cupcakes are frosted, you can garnish, which I think is the fun part. I just put an extra raspberry on top because I love the flavor, but you could add a teeny tiny lemon wedge, a few mint leaves, a tiny umbrella, a straw, sprinkles, whatever you think looks best. I also added a little bit of leftover lemon zest, and before I taste it, I'm going to ooh and ah at these things because they look so fun and summery fresh. This is delicious. The cake flour makes the cupcake so light and airy. All the uses of lemon really shine through in the cupcake, and the raspberry is wonderful throughout the icing. I was a bit nervous because buttercream is not my strong suit. I know it's finicky, and when I didn't whip the butter long enough, I was a bit nervous about the end result. But honestly, this is great. I would certainly take these to a neighborhood barbecue or a summer party and be proud of them. I highly recommend you give these a try, and let me know if you modify the recipe at all. I'd love to know how you made this your own. Thank you so much for being with me today. I hope you'll share what you learned with me in the comments below. And remember, trying new things is messy, but the end results can be pretty sweet. Have a great rest of your day. Bye now.